"You're finished here, Frank." My boss didn't even look up when he said it. His pen scratched across a paper like my 30 years of work meant nothing. The room was quiet, too quiet. 3 managers sat along the table, no one spoke, no one looked at me. I stood there with my coffee still warm in my hand. 32 years in that company, and this was how it ended. My boss finally leaned back and smiled. "Security will escort you out." A small laugh slipped from one of the younger managers. I felt every eye in that room waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I just nodded once, slow, calm. Then I placed my company badge on the table. For a moment, no one moved. And that was when my boss said the line that changed everything. "You should have retired quietly, old man." The room chuckled. I stayed silent, but inside, one thought crossed my mind. He has no idea what he just started. Because 3 hours earlier, I had sent one email, and what they didn't know was that email was already on its way to someone far above my boss, someone who cared very much about the truth. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Have you ever been pushed aside just because of your age? If you have, you'll understand exactly why I stayed so calm that day. If this story resonates with you, share your experience in the comments and consider subscribing for more stories of patience and justice. I started working at that company in 1992. Back then it was small, just 2 floors and a dozen employees. I helped build it. Late nights, missed birthdays, weekends spent fixing problems nobody else understood. Over the years, the company grew. New buildings, new teams, new executives, and eventually, a new boss. His name was Daniel Mercer. He was young, confident, sharp suit, perfect smile, the kind of man who talked about modernizing leadership. At first, I liked him, but after a few months, something changed. Daniel didn't like experience. He liked control, and older employees like me, we were inconvenient reminders. One by one, the senior staff began disappearing. Early retirements, sudden restructures, budget adjustments. Each time it happened, Daniel said the same thing: "We're moving forward." But something about it never felt right. The numbers didn't add up, not small mistakes, the kind that could destroy someone's career. Projects were being rushed, budgets were shifting in strange ways, and my department, we handled the financial records, which meant I saw things most people didn't. Small things at first. A signature where it shouldn't be, an approval that bypassed procedure, money moving faster than normal. I kept quiet for months. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just bad management. But 3 weeks before that meeting, I found something that made my stomach turn. A transfer request. Large, hidden inside another department's budget, approved by Daniel. But the destination account? It wasn't connected to any company project. That was the first moment I realized something. Daniel Mercer wasn't just pushing older employees out, he was clearing the room, and I had accidentally seen something he didn't want anyone else to notice. That was the moment the story truly began. When you're young, anger comes fast. You slam doors, you argue, you fight to prove you're right. But when you're 62, you've lived long enough to understand something. Silence can be louder than shouting. The day I found that transfer request, I sat alone in my office. The building was almost empty, just the hum of the lights above me. I stared at the screen for a long time. 32 years of loyalty, and suddenly I understood why Daniel wanted people like me gone. Older employees notice patterns. We remember how things used to work. We ask questions, and questions are dangerous to the wrong kind of leader. I leaned back in my chair. My hands felt heavy. Not because I was scared, but because I was disappointed. I remembered the early days of that company, the founder shaking my hand, telling me, "Frank, people like you keep a business honest." That memory stayed with me, and in that quiet office, I made a decision. I wouldn't shout, I wouldn't accuse anyone, and I definitely wouldn't warn Daniel. Instead, I would watch, carefully, patiently. For the next 2 weeks, I paid attention to everything. Emails, budget adjustments, meeting notes. Patterns started forming. Transfers linked together. Approvals moving faster than normal. Every trail led back to Daniel. But I still needed proof, real proof, the kind that couldn't be ignored. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. An automated report landed in my inbox. A system glitch had copied me on a financial summary meant only for executives, and inside that report was the same account number I had noticed before. But this time, the amount was 5 times larger. That's when I realized something chilling. Daniel wasn't just moving money, he was accelerating, which meant one thing: he was running out of time. And suddenly, so was I. I didn't tell anyone what I knew. Not my coworkers, not HR, not even my closest friend in the office, because information is fragile. The more people touch it, the easier it breaks. Instead, I started documenting every transfer, every timestamp, every approval. The funny thing about digital systems is this: people think deleting files erases the truth. It doesn't. It just hides it temporarily. For 2 weeks, I quietly collected everything: copies of reports, internal logs, audit trails. I worked slowly, carefully. Meanwhile, Daniel grew more confident. I could see it in meetings. He interrupted people more, smiled wider, talked about new leadership energy. And one afternoon, he called me into his office. "Frank," he said, leaning back in his chair, "have you thought about retirement?" I smiled politely. "Not yet." He tapped a pen on his desk. "Well, maybe it's time." The conversation lasted 5 minutes, but it told me everything I needed to know. Daniel wasn't nervous. He believed he had already won. That belief made him careless. 3 days later, the final piece arrived. Another transfer, same hidden account, approved after midnight. And that's when I wrote the email. My finger hovered over the send button for a moment. One click, and Daniel's entire career could collapse. Not a long message, just a few sentences, attached with documents, audit logs, transaction histories, and one simple question: could someone explain why these transfers bypassed compliance review? I didn't send it to Daniel. I sent it to the Corporate Oversight Board and the CEO. Then I shut down my computer. The next morning, Daniel scheduled the meeting where he tried to fire me, which brings us back to that conference room, and the moment everyone thought my career was over. What they didn't know was the email had already been opened. The meeting ended quickly. Security walked beside me as I cleared my desk. My coworkers avoided eye contact. That part hurt more than I expected. But I stayed calm, because timing matters. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Frank?" The voice was serious. "This is Michael Lawson from the executive office." My heart slowed. Not faster, slower. "We received your email this morning," he said. There was a pause. Then another voice joined the call, the CEO. He asked only one question: "Are these records authentic?" "Yes," I said quietly. Another silence followed. Then the CEO spoke again. "Please don't leave town." That was it. The call ended. I sat in my car for a long time, watching employees walk in and out of the building. Inside those walls, Daniel Mercer probably felt unstoppable, but something had just shifted. And by the next morning, the first crack appeared. Daniel's office door stayed closed all day. 2 unfamiliar men arrived with laptops. No one knew why, but rumors started spreading. And for the first time since that meeting, Daniel stopped smiling. 3 days later, I received another call. This time, they asked me to return to the building, not as an employee, as a witness. When I walked through those doors, something felt different. People looked up. Whispers followed me down the hallway. At the end of the corridor stood the conference room, the same one where Daniel tried to fire me. But this time, Daniel was already inside. He looked smaller somehow. The sharp confidence was gone. Papers covered the table: audit reports, printed emails, transaction logs. The CEO stood near the window. He nodded when he saw me. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Frank, could you explain how you noticed the discrepancy?" I did, calmly, step by step, every transfer, every pattern, every hidden approval. The room stayed silent. Daniel tried to interrupt once, but the CEO raised his hand. Let him finish. When I was done, the auditors presented their findings. The hidden account wasn't linked to any company project. It was connected to a shell corporation, one controlled by Daniel Mercer himself. The total amount? Over $2 million. The irony was almost poetic. Daniel had tried to fire me for being too old, But the very experience he mocked was what exposed him. The CEO looked directly at Daniel. "You are suspended immediately." Security entered the room, but this time, they weren't there for me. And as Daniel was escorted out, he glanced back once, his face pale, confused, as if he still couldn't understand how everything collapsed. But the truth was simple. He underestimated patience. The investigation lasted 2 months. Daniel was eventually charged with fraud. Several executives who ignored the warning signs were forced to resign. As for me, something unexpected happened. The CEO asked if I wanted my job back. I thought about it for a long time. 32 years is a big part of a life. But sometimes the ending matters more than the middle. So I declined. Instead, I helped the company rebuild their financial oversight system. Consulting work, less stress, more time with my grandchildren. And occasionally, I drive past that old office building. Not with anger, not with pride, just quiet peace. Because the truth eventually found its way to the surface, and patience made sure it stayed there. I still remember Daniel's words that morning. "You should have retired quietly, old man." Maybe he thought age meant weakness, but age also means something else: perspective, patience, and the wisdom to wait for the right moment. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated only to prove someone completely wrong? If this story meant something to you, share your experience in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about patience, justice, and quiet strength, consider subscribing. Because sometimes the calmest person in the room is the one who changes everything.